Welcome everyone to Citizen Climate Lobby's CCL Canada Education Call for 2019. Tonight we have Brett Cease from Citizens Climate Lobby and Citizens Climate walking us through the new CCL Community. Brett has been volunteering with CCL since 2011, and he serves as the volunteer engagement coordinator where he strives to develop learning pathways that create the most empowered and informed citizen lobbyists. And he's from northern Minnesota, a former wilderness director. He almost has a Canadian accent. Okay, welcome him on the call tonight. He's currently living in Lexington, Kentucky, and he likes craft beer to make it.
Oh, right on. Wow, that is a wonderful introduction, and obviously just thank you all for making time tonight. I'm honored and humbled to be an honorary Canadian. I don't know if Jody will have me in Australia, but I'll try to work on my Aussie accent throughout tonight. And I just have 3 goals, and then would love to use the rest of this time to really make sure that we're thinking through things strategically for CCL International and get all of your feedback since you're the ones giving up your busy time tonight. And those 3 goals that I have are to do a quick introduction, if you haven't already seen it, to New Community's Where to Find Help section. I'd love to show you a little bit about the group functionality, since the whole reason we've made this big upgrade is to allow a lot of features with groups to really blossom. And then lastly, I'd love to just show you how we've organized a couple of the other key areas that will affect all of you as group leaders throughout the world. So I'll share my screen here, and I'm also going to start my timer so that I can make sure that I don't take up 15 minutes of your time here before we get to Q&A for the last 25. All right, so welcome to New Community. Right now I'm looking at my dashboard screen. I'm guessing if you have seen this already, it's familiar. What I'd love to do is just help everyone feel a little bit more comfortable with navigating around New Community tonight. And the first place to go, if you haven't already, is the Getting Help with New Community tile up here in the upper right of your dashboard. If you click on that anywhere in the tile, it's going to take you to a page that we're really proud of called Community Tours. And on this page, there's basically 2 elements, one of which is a reminder on where to find help. And that is this 3 different methods up top. And then the other bottom half is guiding you through different sections of community. So I'm not actually going to do this tonight, partly actually because these tours are one time, and in order to make sure they were working correctly, I had to do them. So I don't have access to them anymore. But for any new user, I did want to highlight that you can basically hold their hand without even having to be throughout the rest of the world and show them where to find help, how to personalize their dashboard, how to update their profile, how to participate in the forums, how to navigate our content pages, how to discover the power of groups, and how to interact with our events features, all right here on this one page. So again, that is easily findable just by going to this Getting Help with New Community tile in the upper right. We're going to keep it there through the launch of our beta trial for all users, which will basically take us through early April. And from then on, we'll probably have it still available here in this tools menu. So I know I'm clicking around quite a bit already. The biggest thing that I wanted to highlight in Getting Help with New Community not only are the tours, but just this week especially and all ahead, 3 ways that you can get help. Because we all know that learning technology is intimidating. At least for me, if I was told I had to switch from Gmail to Hotmail, I'd be somewhat frustrated. And so I realized that this is an undertaking we're all doing together. And part of why we wanted to have tonight's check-in is just to obviously demonstrate that we are available as people learn. But I highly support training for your groups last week and this week at 8 p.m. Eastern. I know depending on the time zone, that may be more or less convenient for people throughout the world, but that information's here. We also have, I would say, a really robust page that we are as changes and improvements are made. So if you are concerned, is this still the most accurate or up-to-date information? It is. It will always reflect the most accurate and current instructions based on community as we evolve. And then lastly, let's just say you don't find what you're looking for on the FAQ page. We have a Ask Us Anything form where you can pose your question and make sure that it's addressed by the right CCL staff member and gotten to within a quick turnaround. So let me just quickly show you. If I click on that FAQ page, what you'll see here is a wonderful feature in that depending on your role, if you're a group leader or a regional state coordinator, forget the exact title equivalent in other countries, or a general community user, each of these sections only shows up for you. So group leaders get to see extra, etc. General users won't see this whole block of additional guidance and questions that group leaders have. It's really segmented based on your role. That's one of the wonderful features of New Community. It can do that throughout the site. And then you can see here, let's just say I'm really having a hard time figuring out the forums. So I can just type in here, forums, and if I do a command or a control F to find the word on a page, and lo and behold, there's a whole bunch of different references. I can go in between here. Maybe I just am curious, what are the forums in general? So I'd click on that. It auto scrolls all the way down to the corresponding answer block. If you have a chapter member that's having a hard time, you can even share this URL and it'll go right to this block on the FAQ page. So they don't have to hunt and peck. They can go right to the section that you want to highlight for them. And the other great thing about this page is that it also has those user guides that I know group leaders have seen. If you go to the very top, there's a link to the user guides depending on your role that you can always see and have the current access to. So that's the FAQ page. And the last thing I'll say on this getting help section, and before maybe even just opening it up for a question to make sure this is making sense, is if you click on that Ask Us Anything form link, or if you want to go to forums in general, the way to get there is Connect with Others is one of the top menu items. It's a drop down, so if you click on it, and then over on the right here, you see the forums category, just click on that link. You can see it's divided by our 5 levers of political will on the right, so specific topics depending on those levers. On the left are larger conversations, and one of those is Ask Us Anything. So you can basically see that, and then once you're in a category that you'd like to share in, you would just click on Start a New Topic, and it's basically like an email browser at this point, where you just type in your subject, your message, and then you click Post instead of Send, and then that should register. So that way you can field any questions or have volunteers, especially your time is precious. If you're getting swamped with managing, volunteer questions about community, send them to the forums instead, and we'll take care of them. The last thing on forum or on help period, just show you what happens if you're logged out. Everyone should have got an email from Madeline last week, but let's just say for whatever reason you never got that email, or you can't find it, and you've searched spam, or for whatever reason you just can't identify it, you can always log into Community even if you don't have your current password by clicking on this login button in the upper right, and then there's a little forgot password link. And from there, just put in whatever email you've been using with CCL. It'll send you an auto email back that allows you to reset your password, and boom, you're in. So that's a big thing to really also help troubleshoot if you're bumping into that challenge with your group members. So let's just actually pause for a minute. I don't want to bore people to death with details here. And if folks have questions on anything I've covered so far, I'd love to field anything that you would like more detail on. I know it's pretty basic too, so if you'd like me to move forward, I'm happy to, but I wanted to go at a pace that felt right.
Yeah, I have a question, Brett.
Yeah, go for it, Jody.
It looks amazing. We've already explored a little bit, but I just wonder if you can go back to one of the windows that you opened, the site-wide forums, just to have a little bit of a part of what's there.
Yeah, so I'm going to the site-wide forums, go connect with others, and then here.
Yeah. Yeah, so 5 levers discussions, Energy Innovation Covered Dividend Act, general. Yeah, so how, I mean, are there any preferred ways that you'd like for all of those to use? There's so many things, and sometimes it's difficult to know what goes where. Do you have any preferences for how we go about that?
You mean like how group leaders like yourself can share expertise and also weigh in on some of the questions and discussions happening?
Right, so it's just a matter of finding where the discussions are happening that you want to join in on in these larger conversations and hop in there. So just explore it all.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say, again, it's easy to get sucked in, and even, something like the bug and feature request form you can see has 266 posts already. So there's a lot of discussion happening. You're not going to probably feel like you need to be on all of it, but if you have a particular angle that you're looking for, like, Australia, let's just say that, you can always type in this upper search bar in the forums to see, what's going on. You can filter by a specific category. So maybe you just want to look in the general, so then you'd get rid of any of these other ones. The blue means you've highlighted those category threads, or you could search throughout all of the forums. And then whatever you find, you can just click on that link. It'll actually open it up in a new tab so you can refer back even. And then, feel free to weigh in here like you would with starting a post. The cool thing is we transferred the last year's worth of forum discussion from old community over here. So there's a lot of stuff that even if people missed the last year, they can now see still again. Yeah.
Certainly we're looking at it because one of the things we really do enjoy is connecting with other international groups. Of course, being US based, it's difficult kind of to insert that international flavor, to know how to do it, where to do it. Congress is such a major focus. So
I think that is a great idea and something that we can design around for everyone here on the line tonight, especially, so intra conversations between Canadians or between Australians can happen easily within the groups that you can set up. But if you especially are looking to find ways to connect with each other, and CCL's US-centric nature is kind of that, we can either pull out a general category that's a subcategory just for international conversations. There's a lot of ways that we could do this, and I'd love to put heads together with whoever to achieve, some more of that cross-pollination goal.
Sure, it would be good. I mean, it would be good even when we send our members to their own dashboards for there to be some obvious international button, say. And because the news that's happening with South Africa and Ireland and Canada, and there's obviously going to be more of that kind of discussion happening rather than less. It is something that we use to keep up to speed, and we tell our politicians that when we meet them as well. So so it's actually, of material use in our lobbying as well as being one of the really, really nice things to share.
Well, the really cool thing too is, as you've just even hinted at, Jody, this is a great kind of sequence to the next section. We can customize this featured content by your role. And one of the roles or segments that CCL knows, kind of just referencing our database when people log in, is your chapter status and whether you've been marked international, or from a different country. And so as we get things up and running and work out a couple of more of the bugs, I would love to put heads together with Australian, Canadian, and other countries' leadership so that one of these blocks can be something that, as you have things going on in your country, community can be a tool that really features that. And it's right there.
Yeah, it looks like it can do all that and more. Okay, thanks, Brett.
So for tonight, I think what we should do is let us, think bold and, large-scale brainstorm ideas, and we can get into the nitty-gritty here maybe on a separate call. But know that one of the features that's optioned is not only the forums, ability to have a pull-out for international discussion, but also for the dashboard itself to really be able to identify blocks. We call these little blocks based on your status, and maybe for U.S. actions we'd have the equivalent pull out for international ones depending on your status. So that's an awesome tool that New Community allows. And let me transition just for the sake of time to showing the connected thing to that. which is right now, if you go to connect with others, we already showed from. If anyone in the world right now goes to connect with others and then clicks on local chapters, they can see a map that's interactive and allows them to connect with any chapter throughout the world. So right now it happens to zoom in on the US at first. My apologies. And then after that, though, you can really zoom in and out and scroll around and just really start to see the chapter presences in other countries. And let's just say you're curious about, what's going on. Let's pick maybe an active chapter here. Do you have one in particular along the East Coast that you'd recommend, Jody?
There's quite a lot in Sydney, so if you hit further, just a little bit further south from where you are.
I'll zoom in to actually get to Sydney proper here.
It's maybe zooming. Yeah, try come in. You just happened to pick the Prime Minister's seat just there.
Oh, right. All right. So I love it. So let's just do
CCL Community in Australia. Some of the groups are using CCL Community and most are not. So we're quite hopeful that the new version, will help.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a transition for all of us. But for any one of these chapters, they have already gotten their group set up. And the second part that I wanted to highlight here is just a couple of things to spotlight in the group tools. And from here, you can refer back to the FAQ because all of this is well documented. I forgot to mention in the footer of any page, this top link under help goes right back to that FAQ page if you're ever curious about where to find it. So I know I might speak to a couple things, but Kathy, you were just cheering along.
Just a quick question. Sorry. The old groups that were on Old Community? Oh, darn. It's frozen.
Something about just local chapters from Old Community to New Community?
Yeah, well, we had CCL Canada had our own group. Is it still there? I've not explored it yet. I'm having issues because my old whatever. Don't worry, it's technical. But do you know? Is there the Canada-wide group still there?
Yeah. So what was originally called the Great White North, I know, was on the list to migrate to CCL Canada New Community. I have not been the one porting over action teams and groups. That's been Brian. So if you haven't found it, what I would love for Ray, Tom, Laura, whoever has been looking right here on the chat, if you could put the URL to the Old Community group, I will make sure after this that Brian creates the equivalent. And what I'll also show here is, I don't know what the equivalent role assignment is in Canada to the US of a state or regional coordinator. But I'll show you a tool that we have that's called the custom group editor, basically, that allows you to create and build blocks of groups depending on whether you want to have all of your groups that is just, in, let's say BC or just Eastern Canada or whatever. You can create and customize a group depending on the dimensions that you want to include now, or just West Australia, you name it. And this tool allows those state coordinators, let's just call them that role, to really be deputized to create these group pages that don't just naturally exist with a local chapter. So you can create mega groups, if you will. So let me show you just real quick on the groups side of things, and then we can clarify this, where to find the Canada-wide one. So if you land on any group page, you'll see 3 columns right now. You'll see basically a leave a comment in the middle. This is like a water cooler, kind of discussion with welcoming messages that people can, put whatever updates they want, but it's not going to get captured anywhere. It's just kind of a general discussion for anyone that wants to participate online. The right side, About Us and More Info, is essentially what the group leader can customize. Right now, it's all set up with default welcome language, but you can personalize this. I'll show you just a real quick view in my group. You can even do, photos. You can highlight where your social media feed is or your Google Drive, where to, participate in the next local event. One of the other things that we love doing is highlighting, if you're new to the chapter and you land here for the first time, there's a little invite to share about who you are on the group's forum. So there's like a little introduce yourself category where people can basically just share who they are, what they came to CCL for, and interact, right away with the actual group. So all of that's customizable, and I won't go through the full instructions tonight because that's all in the FAQ, but just know the possibilities are there. On the left side is a series of options that each group really can deck out depending on their interests. You can set up your own forums. So again, this is like the site-wide forums only for your group. So you can even mark your group as private and have these conversations be not visible to anyone except anyone that requests to join. Everyone's by default public, and we think that most groups will probably want that. You can see members. So basically at this point, that allows you to add friends, send private communications to anyone in your chapter, really democratizes the communication depending on, how people have gotten a hold of each other in the past. There's a middle section where you can upload files, photos, and videos. I won't go into those details right now, but that's on the FAQ, and you're welcome to use our system with New Community or continue to use Google Drive, whatever, platform, cloud-based service that you found. You don't feel like you have to convert everything over, but this is one way that you can, obviously leverage the cloud that the community is providing. The one cool thing I actually will just say is with these, if you do choose to use the file system, if you upload something, you can actually choose to have it be available site-wide. So let's just say you've created a resource and you want it to be something that other people see. You can check this box, and that means that other people, if they search within group resources in general, can actually find, if you've done a good job of titling and describing it, a resource that you want to make sure other CCL chapters can benefit from too. So that really distributes ownership of resources in a way that we've never had. The big feature that I want to show, though, in groups is the email feature, and then we'll pause here after this for questions. So if you click on email, you as a group leader will be able to email your whole chapter as of that day, live updated, synced with the roster, so you don't have to download an Excel file ever again and put it in the blind carbon copy line of email. You basically just have to type in your subject and your message, and at this point, it's going to go out to your group. People can still customize in their own settings whether or not they actually want to get an email, or if it's just going to show up in their inbox in community. But right now, the default for everyone is to be notified not only in community, but to also get a personal email with your announcement. So that's a huge feature and one of the big things that group leaders have asked about. And then you also have the option of emailing a subset of your group. Let's just say, you wanted to email everyone. This is opening up a big can of worms, I know, for the time we have, but I do want to show it just because it's got a cool bell and whistle. If you wanted to email everyone in your chapter that was interested in tabling or that was interested in meeting with your next, lobby meeting, you would click on this little just review pathway, scroll down in the email box, go to the second section which says email a subset, and then click on to select recipients here, this green button. Click on the filter, and then make sure that CCL chapter is indicated. For me, mine is Kentucky Lexington. So I'm going to type that in and hit enter, and now the narrowing is only members in community that are part of this chapter. And I can still filter even further based on interests. I clicked on that and say I just want to get an email out to people in my chapter that are interested in tabling because there's a sudden opportunity. Boom, I can just click this plus button next to their names, click add, and now I've effectively been able to sort my group based on interests. So that's a huge thing that does require people, whether it's individuals or the group leader, to go in and update their interest fields. But again, a huge feature that people have been asking for that we now have available as we get to learn that. So before I stop for questions on this, though, I will highlight there's events that you can use and set up and invite. Events are great. You can use the event feature to add to your own calendar seamlessly. You can use the event feature to communicate with each other and plan and comment event. shows you basically how you personally are receiving notification. It allows you to customize how frequent you're getting messages to your email. If you don't want to be notified about anything, then you can just uncheck all of this and leave it all to community and not, have your inbox get flooded. The same thing with subscriptions. You can turn them off, you can turn them on. Just make sure to click save at the bottom of each of these pages, and that will capture your preferences. It allows you basically to a lot of what we've shown. A lot of the edit screens for the About Us section and the welcome message and so forth are all there. And you also, if you click on admin, can get into tools that allow you to create your roster, as well as even a sub-team, which we're calling chapter teams. So if you just want to have a subgroup that's just on tabling, that's here too. I know that 45 minutes is a tall order to do everything, so tonight is largely focused on just selling the benefits and then fielding questions. So with that, I will pause again, and let's take questions for another couple of minutes.
Brett, it's Tom.
Hey, Tom.
How's it going?
Hey, going great, my friend. And yourself?
Good. I was wondering if you could give us a brief overview about managing the roster.
Yeah. Let's see here. So basically, and I'm actually catching up with the chat as well. So thank you for that, for the link. So you're just saying, so I'm going to click on my roster tool. There's a couple of ways to get there. And what are you wanting to know or be reminded of in kind of this view, Tom? What would be helpful? And thank you also for not notifying me of HIPAA violations here, because right now you can see all of my chapter, and I will trust that none of you will reach out and spam Kentuckians that have given me their contact information.
Well, I haven't been able to get into it because apparently I'm not identified as at the right level or something. So first of all, how do I even get permission to maintain my roster?
Well, did you have access in old community?
I never looked, never tried.
Okay. Well, we will go under the hood after the call on making sure individuals, obviously like leaders like yourself, Tom, are getting access. The biggest thing to diagnose access and can look in Salesforce under the hood is whether you're marked as a chapter roster editor. So even if you're a group leader, if you're having an issue actually loading this page, I would make sure to ask whoever you ask, that looks in Salesforce for you, that you are marked in this role right here, which is chapter roster editor. And that will allow you, even if you're not a group leader, to share access to this roster with anyone else in your chapter. So if, for example, you wanted somebody else like Bernadette to be on the chapter roster editor with you, you could click on this edit button next to her, add her as a checkbox, click save, and now she's going to show up right here, and will allow her to do the same thing that I'm showing you here. So the chapter roster should be automatic as an access point for any group leader. Please send me an email, and I'll put my email in the chat here if that isn't the case for you. Okay. And the other thing that I'd show here, Tom, and for anyone, is that if you're interested in knowing how to use interests, this is a great way to basically, as a group leader, even if some of your chapter members aren't active, you can look at them and figure out, again, well, I know Sarah is really keen on writing letters, so I'm just going to give her those two. And so I basically, you can check all, you can uncheck any. I'm just going to give her those two. I'm going to click out of here, and then I'm going to click save. You do need to always save your changes, and then that's going to allow her to be filtered in. The big thing with interest updates is that they take 1 day to go back and talk with our database. So they aren't instant. Make sure to save them, but don't expect them to show up maybe in other places for that 1 day so that CCL Community can also talk to Salesforce. And Lynn asked this great question in the chat. Can I set an email filter so that only chapter members who have active will get my message? So that is an excellent question. And I see Kathy wanted to weigh in on something first. So I'll give the floor to you, Kathy, and I'll show you, Lynn, after that, how to go about messaging only chapter active members.
Okay, for anyone who wants to have access to their group roster, you have to be identified as a group leader. And that is really, takes me a minute to check in Salesforce. So if you're not able to get the roster, so right now I'm looking for Tom. And Tom, if you're not identified as the group leader, when I go into Salesforce, do you want me to click on you as one of the group leaders?
Yes.
Okay, I will. And that's all I need to do. It takes me about 10 seconds. So anyone who wants to have access to their roster and they're having difficulties, make sure your group knows that you have access to it. You are identified as the group leader and you can have access to it.
Da, 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 da.
But you can just be a GL for one group, only one group. That's right, isn't it? So you can't have that as a default way of being regional coordinator with access across several groups.
Yeah, so right now the way that the database works is that group leaders only have access to the roster in their chapter. And if you wanted roster access on top of that to a larger region, you know what the equivalent international role is. In the US, for example, we have state coordinators that can see all of the rosters in South Carolina or something like that. It's clear that maybe one of somebody needs to figure that out, because that, Kathy, do you, I guess, have more insight on that right now?
We're not able to do it for Canada.
Okay.
So what a couple people have done is they've opened up 2 emails so they can have access to their neighboring rosters. Did that make sense?
And as we figure out, this tool, hopefully there can be additional ways. I know obviously IT resources are stretched thin, and as we can get up and running, hopefully what is available in other places can also be available for other countries. So for now, that's good to know, though, that there is a workaround. If you do want another roster, just create a test account or something else. And unfortunately, it sounds like that's as good as we've got. So
yeah. And just to add one more layer to that, outside of the USA, Canada, and especially Europe, both of us have extremely strict rules about sharing personal contact information. So you have to sign waivers and stuff like that to get additional access in Canada. I've got to legally cover our butts. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's why I can just show you anyone's name and email here in Kentucky. There's a lot of good things going for Kentucky, so I guess there we go. And with that, let me just show you really quick, Lynn, this example of how to restrict or message just based on activity level. And then we'll pivot to the last topic tonight, because I'm only going to be on for another 10 minutes or so. And obviously after that, please feel free to continue to reach out to me for whatever we don't cover. So you can, in any of your rosters, update and mark activity level based on whether your actual chapter members are very active all the way to not active, moved away even, or a new prospect. And if you are interested in that, and then going through here and at least indicating maybe you have 10 or 15 people that are very active, what you can do with that information now is I'm going to go back to my group page. I'm going to click on Manage Teams. So I got there again by going to my own home group page. I clicked on Admin. I clicked on Manage Teams. That's going to open up a new window. And then in that window, I can create an active chapter team that's basically just filled with members that have been filtered in as very active or whatever you want. Now, I've only relocated to Lexington, and I'm resuscitating this group in the last several months. So right now we haven't actually done this as well as I should yet myself. But when you do that, you can easily basically click on whatever membership you want. And let's just say, I'm just going to uncheck all of these so more people show up. Let's just say these top 3 people, and actually 3 out of the 4 of them are actually very active. Let's say they're also very active. I would just click on them in the checkbox, click Save. They'd move over here to this membership of the actual active chapter team. And then I would exit out of here. And if I want to go to that little chapter team, I'll go here to my active chapter. And now the cool thing is whoever's in this chapter team, which is a sub-team, or a child of my larger chapter, I can still email all of them. So it's just going to go to those people that I've designated as a member of this chapter. You could even join it if you wanted to. You don't have to be assigned only by the group leader. And then the quick way to email somebody, again, is just going to that email button and sending it out. And you a bona fide way to fill activity level. The possibilities are really endless on that front. And so I know I've gone quick. The FAQs walk through how to do that. I actually do a video where you can stop it at any point and see, side by side with your roster how to do just that. But the last thing that I promised to do tonight is just give you a quick preview into how we have updated our content. So if you go from anywhere on Community, you can see this top dashboard has 4 buttons. The top menu, sorry. You have your dashboard link. You have your connect with others. We've already explored a lot of that feature. We have the CCL events link, and that's any upcoming event. But then we also have this big drop down called resources and training. There's a volunteer page for new volunteers. You can go to that at any point. We'll keep that updated and more filled out as we get up and running. But we've divided things into training topics, resources, and tools. And that tripartite division is similar in only the fact that it's 3 to Old Community's division in Take Action, Resources, and Learning. If you remember the Learning Center and the Take Action Center. Resources, I'll just go through each of these, one at a time. You can get to the landing page at any of them by just clicking on this little all resources, all tools, or all topics in the upper right for that category. Resources is the same as Old Community. It's basically things that you'll print, refer to, or share for your next activity. So largely print material, but you can also find slides or different endorsement reports for your region here, Spanish language outreach material, you name it. That's all here categorized by the different topics. So the levers of political will, or even communication, studies, you name it. You can also search down here if you're having a hard time finding it by category. Trainings are grouped together by topic pages. And we did this because regional coordinators and power users wanted to have a one-stop URL that they could share with their friends, their group, if they just wanted one page to say, look, if you're looking to find out about the Energy Innovation Act, just copy and paste this URL, and it's got you set up for everything you might want to know. So every one of these topic pages is the same. It has a series of trainings that are ordered in the kind of a logical or intended to be logical way from introduction to more advanced topics on the left, and then related resources and links to each of those on the right. And you can see that each of these training pages then you can access if you just click anywhere here on the left, walks through a topic in 3 formats. Sometimes it's just a guide, or sometimes it's just the movie, but for the most part we're going to have 3 ways of learning any subject. You have the written out guide, you have an ability to watch the webinar, and this is familiar with those of you that remember the Learning Center. And then you can also listen to the podcast and download it, or right here in your browser. And then basically at this point, you can also see affiliated resources, a discussion topic, connection, additional suggestions to go deeper. The cool thing too is that you can print any of these resource pages if you just load it and go to Control P or Command P for printing. That's to download a resource that you also have as a PDF or a printable document too for any of these trainings. And you're right. So this replaces the Training Center or the Learning Center. These are the training topics pages for the new one. And Ray asked this great question about Canadian resources. We have not made a plan yet to migrate them. I think that there's infinite potential, and that's a great idea. And I would welcome the conversation with you and Kathy and whoever else to figure out how we can, integrate these things available for the right people, potentially even on one site. So let's see how that might be possible. And then the last thing that I'll just show and pause for questions is that on this resources and training link, tools was one of the most frequently used areas in Old Community, but we didn't really have a category for it. We just had field reports randomly and TOPS engagement tracker or the outreach database back in the old days. Those were just kind of on their own. So now they've been categorized in their own placement, and you can see if you ever want to have access to a form that you can update your activity or access data or information. All of these are available on one landing page. All the action tools are grouped there. All of your chapter roster or regional and state rosters are there too. So that's in this drop down, and it's trying to make it a lot easier for you to find and use and interact with that. So with that, though, I would love to pause for questions again for another 2 minutes or so before I'll have to drop off for tonight, and just really want to thank you all for your time and input.
This was really great, Brett. What sort of resources went into making all this? Like, how many man hours? Woman hours?
Well, yeah,
how much money? It looks like somebody spent tens of thousands of hours on this. Am I exaggerating? Is it more like 2,000 or 3,000 hours?
I wish I had a firm calculation, but it's definitely in the hundreds, and it's been a team lift across all sectors of CCL. So definitely a huge Herculean effort, and it's still getting better. It's not all perfect yet. We know that, and it's going to be made better because of all of you playing around here in the sandbox with me, helping us.
So this was done.
We can continue to make some good.
Yeah. So this was done by paid staff with paid management, and or was it volunteer run?
Yeah. So it was basically co-run by Ricky and I at points, and then it was delegated. Many people, both staff and CTL volunteers, part of the lift.
That's great. It's amazing. And maybe when enough Canadians get in here and start using it, populating the group, because that's the goal, is to get the Canadians in here, and we'll see what happens. It's beautiful. Just right now, just get them into the groups. And if you could check at the end to see if the Great White North is there, because they put the URL on the side, that would be lovely.
Yeah, that is one of my biggest takeaways tonight. I will absolutely commit to keeping Kathy updated on that, and any other requests that you all have, please feel free to personally me or you firms figure this out so that it's really integrated with international work. We don't want it just to be US centric, and that segmented identity is going to be key in being able to present information that's more relevant for you if you're not in the US, for example. So,
yeah.
For all the kind words everyone too.
Sorry, and my take home is it would be nice to maybe form a subcommittee at the international level, maybe make this better. And I think I'm going to tap Jody.
Well, whoever and however, I look forward to working with you. I'm going to drop off to jump over to Core Volunteer Training, which I know I've seen many of you on occasionally in the past, and in All Ahead. Know that this week, again, a little shout out if you want to really nerd out and continue to talk about new community. We have the nightly support calls. So I'll actually just put a link to that in the chat window as well. That's starting in 15/2.
Just incredible support. So appreciative. Thank you so much, Brett. Any last just comment, no question. Fast comment, and then Brett's got to go.
Thanks a lot, Brett. I put a couple of other questions in the chat if you've got time for them. It's Tom Cullen.
Yeah, feel free to follow up over email then, Tom. I won't have it tonight, but I'd love to get to additional thoughts that you have outside of the Great White North one.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's so good.
So good
to see you and keep doing work. We're absolutely going to be able to make ourselves even more effective, hopefully, with this tool. And I can't thank you enough for all the leadership that you're giving what we need right now so critically. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much,
Cheers.
Brett. Bye.
Thank you.